welcome to Forum for a Better Understanding. It's been a privilege for the last 6 years to be hosting this program, and now for the 303rd time, we have a panel talking about an issue from an interfaith perspective. It's prison ministry, and every single religion definitely has its, I was going to say it's sinners, but it has its saints. As Father Jim explained, the difference is that there is no difference. We are sinners and saints at the same time. And in prison there are many saints, and there are people who have been caught not being their best at the moment. On that note, we're going to visit with people whose commitment is to address those people who are serving time in different ways, in different settings. One thing that Bishop Steinbach has said about this is this, and I think it's a great opening. Jesus was found mostly among the poor, the sick, the lame, the suffering, and the oppressed, the marginalized, the leper, the tax collectors, those looked down upon and despised by the upper class. It was these to whom he proclaimed the kingdom of God and manifested God's love. They are the poor, the homeless families, the farm workers, the migrant, the undocumented, the sick, the imprisoned. And on that note, I'd like to have our panel be introduced. To my left is Claude Muncey, who is since May of 2007 the director in our Diocese of Detention Ministry. In the middle of our group is Lise Rosenthal, whom many of you will remember for sharing the Torah with us for many years on breaking open the Word. But right now she's going to speak in her capacity as a member of the Fresno chapter of Hadassah and how the Jewish community reaches out to inmates at prison. And across from me is my good friend, Father Jim Rood, S.J., who is the diocesan director for our Diocese of Social Justice Ministry. I wonder if we could begin by each one of you telling us what you see as the heart of what you understand as prison ministry. Claude.
It's more than anything else reconnecting the people who are inside with the rest of us, is once again proving to them they're still human beings.
Lise.
The Jewish worldview has the community having a very high degree of responsibility for one another. I think Yenta in The Fiddler on the Roof. And so that on Yom Kippur, when I'm confessing my sins, I'm not going to say, I Lise did this. I'm going to say, we embezzled from the pension fund and we consorted with prostitutes and everything. And people always say, but I didn't. If somebody did, the community has failed. And so those people are inside because we, their community, could have done more to keep them on a straight path. And so it's my obligation because it's my responsibility that they're there.
Thank you for that insight right off the top. Father Jim.
Wow. You stole my thunder at the beginning there. What I was going to say was, before the state, they are all convicted criminals. Before the Lord, we are all sinners in need of forgiveness and love. And what I try to do is be an agent, with all my poverty, to be an agent of God's forgiveness and love to my brothers and sisters, which, by the way, is why I'm wearing my blue shirt, because this is the color that they wear on the inside. I'm wearing it in honor of them.
Boy, this is turning out to be a beautiful start to a program. Now we'll go into another question that I think you all will have different answers to. When was it, where was it, how is it that you began this passion for this particular ministry, Claude?
It was the first Sunday of October in, should be 2002. I can be extremely precise. Wow. Because on that weekend, my wife and I had our first visit to Central California Women's Facility to help out with Sister Kathleen, who was the chaplain there at the time, to help out with the various services, helping out with Mass, helping out with teaching. And my wife and I went in, and we were expecting to be scared, and there was a lot of razor wire, and there were all the doors and everything. We get into the chapel, and we know that we're in serious trouble because we're never going to want to leave. The presence of God is so strong in a place like that. It's sort of like you walk in, Jesus is standing there saying, well, where were you? says, I've been waiting for you here. I'm glad you finally showed up.
Beautiful. Lise, when did it start for you?
Started with a friend of yours, Regina Wurst, who began life
yeah.
as a Catholic, and on her spiritual journey brought her to Judaism. She called me up one day and she said, there's a bunch of Jewish prisoners in Chowchilla. And I said,
Oh, yeah?
Jewish prisoners? You see, we have this myth. Jews they're not alcoholics, they don't beat their wives, and they never go to jail. Now, nobody really believes that. I don't know if it's statistically less likely for a Jew to do any of those things. I don't know if it used to be, but I really was, women, in the women's, Jewish women prison, are you? Yeah, she said, yes, one of them's a member of Hadassah. She's a life member of Hadassah, and she's on death row. Oh, my God. She said, and they're complaining. She's complaining to me. She's very outspoken. And she says that the Catholics and the Protestants and the Muslims get visits, and the Jews, everybody would just prefer to forget them. And it stung because I should have known. I didn't know, but I should have known. And so we asked around, and some people volunteered. I didn't actually join the group. I facilitated it. I made sure that it was happening, but I didn't actually start going until just about a year ago.
Boy, interesting. Regina, going way back.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
She was doing prison ministry as a Catholic while she was living in Chowchilla,
That's right.
and she met this woman who was Jewish, and she just felt that a gap here that somebody needs to be filling, and I'm really grateful to her that she did that.
Wonderful. We'll hear later how you have filled it, because definitely there was an article we saw in the Bee when Francine explained how, we'll talk about that later. Father Jim, how long back in your wonderful career did prison ministry come in?
Unlike Claude and Lise, who can tell you exactly the hour it started for them, I have no clue when or why. I know that I've been doing it for over 40 years now.
Oh my God.
And I was figuring out one day about 24 different prisons, jails, and juvenile facilities from San Quentin down to Tijuana. And I'm really having a hard time figuring out what caused it, what started it, and why I maintain. I do know that when I go out to the prisons, and what I do during the summers, I go to a local prison and I do one yard, hear confessions and talk to the men for a while, and then I'll say mass for them, and then the day's over. But when it's not so hot, I'll do 2 yards, confessions and mass and so forth. And at the end of the day, whether it's summer or winter, I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm tired, I'm pooped, and I'm so exhilarated. It's just so exciting. The things that I discover from my brothers and sisters on the inside, it is just amazing. I love them, and I'm not always following all the rules that I should be following, because like one confession not too long ago, I was hearing this guy and it was very, very emotional. And finally, he just stood up and he hugged me. Well, I had the alarm in my
Oh my God.
my breast
Oh, my
pocket.
word.
The alarm went off.
Oh,
the
Eva.
COs were running in and out, and I said it was me. They still had to check everything. Well, the rest of that day, the statement, the theme in there was, whatever you do, don't hug Father Jim. But I love it.
I can see that. 40 years, that's amazing. That's great. Claude, one thing we want to learn from you right away is something you shared with me is interfaith, or having people of diverse, even ideologies, even different ways to do their Catholic faith. You can get them to appreciate a shared possibility of doing work together in prison ministry. Can you flesh that out a little and explain why that phenomenon happens?
It's something that actually, for those of us who work inside facilities, find very common. Normally you're working with people from all different faith backgrounds. That's part of that's why we are legitimately there. It's a government giving us the space, so everybody has to cooperate. The government isn't going to give one group preferential treatment over another. We have people going into the Catholic Church, has people going into facilities in this diocese who have the most diverse theological and political views that you can imagine. And they work with each other extremely well because the common experience of the work, the common experience of being there, working with inmates, being in God's presence that strongly, is a much stronger binding than any of the other differences they've got.
Lise, have you found something like that with the women that are in the Hadassah group for this ministry? That
The ones that go in? Are you talking about the women that go in? I would say maybe we're closer on the same page than the people that Claude is working with, but still there's different perspectives and there's different emphases, but we've worked together on a lot of things for a lot of years, and we usually sort of know how to do a consensus and just stick with the program. See, I don't have a brown card, so I just Nancy has a brown card, Linda has a brown card, and I just come along and do what I'm told, and they say make a program for lead this Seder, I do this, do that, and take your belt off, take your ring off, whatever they say to do, I just do it and try to make it happen. But we get our ideas together. We're working right now on a Rosh Hashanah program. Nancy's going to come over, and I found some stuff from the movement. And I thought, well, what better than tshuva for these ladies? Tshuva means repentance, and that you're supposed to, all year long, but really especially intensely in the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, you're supposed to really think about what you've done. It's called a cheshbon nefesh, taking accounting of your life, and apologize to who you need to apologize to, and make concrete plans for not messing up again. And I thought, boy, that's what they need. That's a good idea. That's good programming.
So let's stay with that for a second. During this High Holy Days, you've got a perfect window to do something. You'll get there right during that week or prior to it? And
I think it's after Rosh Hashanah.
Okay.
And one of the ladies was upset. She wanted us there on Rosh Hashanah, but I have another place that I'm going to be on Rosh Hashanah. So we're going to, during the Yamim Noraim, during the terrible days, we're going to talk about doing tshuva, and there's a lot of readings and there's a lot of interactive programming. It's really nice that somebody thought of doing that. Obviously, not all of it is appropriate to people on the inside. Any kind of programming we do, we have to adapt.
Oh, yeah, right.
We go in on Hanukkah, and what are you supposed to do? Take a match, light the candle?
Yeah,
Not there. No, sorry. So we got an electric one. And we say the bracha and we plug it in.
They do that even in Catholic churches with vigil lamps sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but they do it. We have to take a break right now. I am so sorry because this was just rolling along merrily, but we're going to have another special guest come on for Father Jim. So why don't you just stay tuned, and in 1 minute, we'll be right back.
KNXT thanks all its loyal viewers and respected businesses who have supported your Catholic television station. Now you can support KNXT with program underwriting by having your name, your company's name, or organization associated with your favorite program. Detailed information about you or your company will appear before and after each program or day part you select. Keep the quality and spiritual message alive and make a difference. Call 559-488-7440 today or go online at knxt.tv to find out more about program underwriting on KNXT.
Hello again, and welcome to the second half of our program, Forum for a Better Understanding, visiting once again with prison ministry. We've done this program several times over the many years that we've had this program, but never with this panel, and never with I guess the gift that we're having is a openness and a real interest about what they're doing and how important this ministry is to them. I am really, really glad we have this panel. Now, Maria, you took Father Jim's place. That's a tough act to follow.
Nobody can take his place.
Nobody can take his place. How would you like to let us know your own commitment to prison ministry in particular, and maybe the history of it, and what most keeps you engaged in it the longer you're at it?
Over many, many years, I had occasion to visit many prisons and many prisoners in various capacities, working for organizations, human rights organizations and such. And I was visiting individual prisoners. again, for various reasons, various activities. And a couple of years ago, not very long ago, I got a phone call from the Reverend Brian Jessup of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno. And he received a letter in the mail that day from a prisoner, a man in a men's prison. And by chance, I also received the same letter from the same man. And he asked Reverend Jessup, could you provide a Unitarian Universalist chaplain for our prison? And the letter to me, because it was sent to me at another organization that I belong to, said, do you know anything about finding the Unitarian Church? So Brian called me and I was calling him, and he said, hey, would you like the job? And I said, well, you're the minister. And he said, no, I've got too much to do. Do you want the job? And I said, yeah. I jumped, and I had never worked in the capacity of a chaplain before. I had done individual counseling with prisoners. And I loved it. I started that about 30 years ago, and I just loved it. It was like, oh, that was my life, even when I was not retired and had to work for a living, but it just became the most important thing. So I started going to this men's prison, representing the UUCF, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno. And I have just gotten so involved. And now I'm doing so many things because I take part in the services for that group, which has grown from 4 people to 40. Even though we don't proselytize, but the prisoners go out and proselytize on their own. But I also work with other prisoners at other times in other areas of the prison, and again do a good deal of individual and group counseling, training some new volunteers, and we always need religious volunteers. And we all, as Claude said earlier, it's amazing how we all work together with the prisoners, and even though our religious beliefs may be different, but our focus there is to help the prisoners to get closer to God. And recently I saw a quote that someone asked the Dalai Lama, what is the best religion? And he expected the Dalai Lama to say Buddhist, because that's what he is. And he said, whichever one brings you closer to God. Yeah, and I love that. And that's what we do in our work, I believe.
Thank you, Maria. Claude, there's a lot of things going on in the diocese. And right now, as we begin the fall season, what's up next for people to get involved in with you?
Well, next month, October, is our Diocesan Congress, which is the annual large teaching training event for the diocese every year. It'll be at the Visalia Convention Center on Saturday, the 9th of October. We're adding something this year for people who work in detention ministry. We always do have speakers working on the topic of detention ministry. This year, we're coming up from LA. But also, we're having a gathering for lunch. For anyone who's buying lunch, you can check a little box on the online registration. It'll be delivered to a room. It's going to be on your ID. And everyone who works in detention ministry that want to can get together for lunch, because this work is spread across the entire diocese.
Oh, yeah.
We never see each other. There's so many of us who've met once or twice and never all in one room. And this would include, of course, anybody who's even interested.
That's great.
So
how many ballpark number maybe would you say could perhaps be at this luncheon, are you hoping?
I really wouldn't know. We're looking at over 1,000 people at Congress, so it could be anywhere from 1 to 100, for all I know. There are so many people. I don't know everyone who's working in detention ministry, because a lot of people do it without anyone knowing. I've gone into facilities and found out there's 1 or 2 Catholics who've been going in for 20 years.
Oh my.
And they've been faithful, and they've been good about it, and they've been a truly godly presence there. They just never bothered to tell anybody. And I don't mean in a bad sense. I think
No,
it's
no,
really
it's-
holy. It's
yeah.
a wonderful thing.
It is.
But that's happened across there. There's always more people out there than you know.
Which is a great thing, and I'm hoping you have so many turn out for that luncheon. It is the biggest event that the diocese pulls off in the whole year is the Congress, the annual Congress and Youth Day. And I just hope you do have many more than you expected, and that the collaboration gets tighter and firmer across the diocese. Good luck. Good luck. Now, Lise, one thing that is intriguing me is that article I read by Francine Farber about how you celebrated Pesach and had a wonderful Passover. So refresh us about what that experience was like, and you had a beautiful phrase about how you understood it.
Well, Passover, of course, is the festival of freedom. It's celebrating how the Jews left Egypt, left slavery, and the Red Sea parted in front of them, and they went from slavery into freedom. It's a festival of freedom, and it's been sort of a metaphor that has empowered many, many, many oppressed peoples to regain their freedom who are not Jewish at all, but it's a really powerful metaphor. And so I put it on my calendar, yes, we're going to the prison, everything. As the day got closer, I said, this is kind of tactless. We're going to go bring them these tambourines, and we're going to dance around, and we're going to sing all these songs. This year I was a slave, now I'm a free person, and everything. They're going to really feel awful, but I don't think they did. I think that they were really happy, and ideally what we were able to convey through this ancient and very powerful ritual of the Passover Seder is finding freedom within yourself, even if externally you would appear to be imprisoned. I mean, because that's really the trick, is having freedom in your soul. And just from listening to the women singing and watching them pounding on the tambourines, I think maybe sometimes it happened. It was very powerful. It was very, very powerful.
Beautiful. Maria, I wonder if briefly you could share perhaps like an anecdote or one moment that actually gives a capsule of what the power of prison ministry can be, what it's been for you.
That's hard to answer, but I think that when a prisoner comes to me and wants to talk, just simply wants to talk, and they may want to talk about their sins or their what brought them to be in prison, or they may be feeling despair and hopelessness because of the situation, or they may have been served with divorce papers the other day, or whatever, and to just be there for them, and never to say, don't worry, everything will be fine, because it won't, but to just comfort them in some way, and to be able to say to them, your wife served you with papers, but God still loves you, and your community here, we still love you. And we're going to support you and watch your back while you're going through this hard time.
That's good.
And that's not really giving anybody a whole lot, but to them it's like he gave them $1 million, even though there's, it doesn't cost me a dime, but it gives them $1 million.
But it's real. It
is
might not
very
be
real.
what they would have chosen for an answer, but at least they know that it's true.
It's true, and it's real, and it comforts them. And a lot of you know that I'm a retired nurse, and very much of that is that I can transfer the nursing behavior, the nursing words, the nursing actions to the people in prison. Because sometimes the patient in the hospital is imprisoned by his or her disease, and they're imprisoned behind the wire by the disease of being in prison. And all you can do is offer them comfort and God's love.
We've reached that sad point in the program when we have 30 seconds for each guest to do their final inspiring thought. Claude, what do you have for us?
It's easy to think of prison ministry is something you're doing for somebody else, you're going inside. The reality is that you're doing it because you're a selfless person for what you're getting out of it. As someone else once said, is that working with the poor, working with prisoners, restores us to ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lise.
I just hope that in our small way that we're able to give them some tools to find some kind of happiness and serenity where they are, and hopefully for those ones who are going to get out to make some better choices when they get out. And if occasionally we hear back, but you have to do it just assuming that you're never going to know. I hope that we're succeeding.
Maria.
Someone asked Sister Helen Prejean one time, why are you doing this, when she was the chaplain on death row? And somebody said, I suppose you think you're going there to save their souls. And she said, nope, I'm going to save my own. And I think I'll just plagiarize her words, because I'm not going to teach them either. I'm going to learn from them, and I do learn from them.
We have 1 minute, and I'm just going to say that it's been a pleasure hosting this program on prison ministry. Now, we're going to hope you'll want to be in touch and continue this discussion on the web. So if you could go, as you can, to knxt.wordpress.com, you'd be able to share with us your own reflections about your experiences regarding prison ministry, and you could also ask us questions, and we'll send them back to our guest today. It's been a pleasure sharing with our panel, because it reminds us of the importance of reaching out to reach in, to be able to see ourselves reflected in the eyes of other people less fortunate than us is a blessing we share too infrequently. Let's hope we can get better at it. God bless.